desert doesn't forgive. Not the heat by day, not the silence by night. Out here, the road isn't a path, it's a gamble. Every mile marker feels like the tick of a clock counting down towards something you don't want to see. Truckers, like me, we tell each other the same thing over and over again. Rule number 1, don't pick up strangers, because out here, between Vegas lights and Groom Lake shadows, you never know what's walking the roadside. You think it's some poor soul with a busted car. Some soldier who wandered too far from base. You stop, and it's the last stop you ever make. I knew the rule, I swore by it. Until that night, the moon was swollen, too red, too close, hanging over the Nevada desert like it wanted to burn a hole through the sand. My rig's headlights cut across the asphalt, my radio spitting static with the occasional flicker of an old tune. And then I saw him, a figure on the shoulder, still, too still. His thumb wasn't even out like a normal hitchhiker. He just stood there, head down, waiting for me, I swear. My foot should have pressed harder on the gas, left him swallowed by the dark, but instead I slowed. Why? I can't even tell you. Maybe it was the eyes. When the lights caught them, they glinted, not like a man's, not like glassy reflection, more like amber, predatory. The door creaked as he climbed in. He didn't speak, just sat there, breathing. Hard, like the air itself hurt him. I caught the smell then, metallic, raw, like a butcher's shop at midnight. His clothes were shredded, his skin scarred, deep grooves down his arms, across his neck, as though something had been tearing at him from the inside. I told myself, just a vet. Maybe escaped from some fight, maybe homeless, but no, this was different. I asked where he was headed. His head turned slow, like the question had to fight its way through bone to reach him. His voice was a rasp, guttural, almost animal. He muttered one word, labs, and then they let me out. The way he said it, like a confession, like a curse. I gripped the wheel harder. We drove in silence. The desert stretched forever. But inside my cab, the air grew hotter, heavier, like the oxygen itself was burning away. Every time I glanced at him, he seemed different, his shoulders bulkier, his hands shaking against his knees. And then the sound, low like a growl, building in his chest. That's when the wrongness hit me in full. This wasn't a drifter, not a man. This was something that didn't belong on a highway or anywhere outside a cage. Something the government had no intention of the world ever seeing. The old rule whispered in my skull, don't pick up strangers. And now it was too late, because whatever I had let inside my truck, it wasn't going to stay human for long. If you felt the chill of that first howl, stay with us. Subscribe before the night takes you. I've driven this stretch enough to know how the night breathes. Out here the wind exhales in long ribs across the sage, the coyotes chorus, then shut up all at once when something bigger steps onto the stage. Tonight, the desert was holding its breath, waiting to see what I'd brought into it. The hitchhiker rode stiff, hands on his knees like he was trying to pin himself to the seat. He didn't shiver, didn't fidget, didn't ask where we were headed, just breathed slow and wrong like each inhale had to grind past teeth that weren't made for speech. My cab light ghosted over him on a curve, and I caught the details. I'd missed. Not scars, bands, 2 pale rings around each wrist. The skin shinier there, bubbled like it had been kissed by a brand. Chain-shaped, the kind you'd get if someone had fastened something hot and mean around you, and didn't plan to take it off, labs, he'd said. That word kept bouncing around my skull like a loose wrench in the glove box. We rolled past a faded sign, swallowed by bullet holes, Mercury and the radio dead quiet for 20 miles. Suddenly caught a murmur. Not CB chatter, not truckers, clean voices, clipped numbers, call signs. The kind of talk that uses 3 words when one will do, and never the ones that make sense. I turned the dial and the voices skated away like they'd felt me listening. The air in the cab turned metallic, prickly. He smelled like a storm chewing on a slaughterhouse. I cracked the window and got hit with a gust of night so cold it felt like it bit, and he flinched. Not from the cold, but from the smell of what was outside, like the desert itself offended him. You hurt? I asked, because silence was turning into a third passenger with opinions. He tilted his head. The light caught his eyes again. Amber, cat wrong, hunter wrong. Up close they didn't reflect. They collected, let out, he said. Not done, not done. A chill rode my spine, like something half-baked pulled from an oven too early, something still cooking under his skin. My St. Christopher medallion dangled from the dash. Habit, not faith. It swung when we hit a ripple and tapped the hitchhiker's forearm. A soft hiss like meat on a skillet popped the air. He jerked, not from pain, more like anger that something dared to touch him. The medallion was just cheap metal. So why did the touch mark his skin like it had teeth? Curiosity loop number 1 snapped open in my head. What burns a man with nothing but a brush of dime store metal? Maybe it wasn't the metal. Maybe it was me, the sweat on my fingers, the salt. Or maybe we were playing with rules I didn't know, old, ones that still take their taxes in blood and silver. Whether you believe or not, we crested a low hill. The road unwound in a black ribbon toward a darker horizon. Out left, no lights, no towns, just the kind of dark you can drown in. Out right, a fence, chain link eaten by sand, with a run of signs that didn't bother with friendliness, the kind of signs that say no trespassing and mean we won't miss. He turned his head and smelled that way, slow like a dog mapping a field before it runs. His lips peeled, not a smile, not a threat, just skin not fitting the mouth anymore. You. Ever hear them call this road something else? I asked, casual tone, failing its audition. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The bones in his forearms answered for him with a dry, twiggy creak, like a branch learning how to bend. He pushed his hands deeper against his knees to hold them still, and his nails caught the dashlight. Not long yet, but thickening, the beds bruising as if something was shouldering its way up from underneath. I felt the microstake's needle jab in. I was bleeding. Maybe I hadn't noticed. But a slice along my thumb from a strap buckle earlier had reopened on the wheel. Just a shine of red. The hitchhiker's attention didn't snap to my face, it dropped to my hand. His breathing changed, hungrier, like the night had just served a sample platter. "I can drop you in, Rachel," I said, casual as a cop asking how fast I was going. "There's a cafe open late sometimes." He lifted his head an inch. "Not Rachel." The word came out like it scraped the inside of his throat. "They watch there." "Who?" I asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The radio did. Just a blip, a brief stitch of syllables, asset, visual, return to, and then it drowned itself in static like a body choosing the river. Curiosity loop number 2 snapped open. Asset who? Asset what? Because if he was an asset, I wasn't giving a man a ride anymore. I was transporting a problem with handlers. And handlers don't like losing the leash. A pair of eyes flared in the brush, then blinked out. Coyotes, probably, except the pack didn't call. The desert kept holding that breath. Animals know. They know the way farmers know storms by the ache in their knees. The hitchhiker's voice thinned. "Turn," he said, chin flicking toward a maintenance road rutting off the highway, half swallowed by sand. There was a sign, not words. A symbol. Radiation trefoil bleached to a soft ghost. "Shorter," he added, lying. Like a kid who's never learned how I didn't turn. Whatever I am, I'm not brave like that. I'm the kind of man who knows when the universe is clearing its throat before it says checkmate. "Not that way," I said. His jaw worked. The skin along his cheek fluttered once, twice, like something underneath it wanted more room. He pulled his hands off his knees and folded them together. The knuckles popped, too loud, too eager. We passed the black mailbox turnoff, a place folks used to leave letters for aliens, or for each other, or for the stories they wished were true. The hitchhiker tracked it like a wolf follows a fence line, and every hair along my arm stood up. I glanced down. The St. Christopher was still swinging. It wasn't hot to the touch, but the air around it felt thinner, like it was burning something. "I couldn't see, not done," he murmured again, almost tender now, like a promise to himself. His eyes slid to the moon chewing on the horizon. Whatever done was, the sky had something to do with it. And suddenly my rule, "don't pick up strangers," felt quaint, like advice about umbrellas in a hurricane. This wasn't kindness gone wrong. This was a door I'd opened in my own house and found out my house sat on a bunker. I tightened my grip on the wheel. My thumb left a wet crescent on the leather. His pupils tracked the shine. The desert finally exhaled, and the night leaned in to listen. Desert folks have names for things that hunt between Rachel and Mercury. Some of you know. Them drop the code name or legend you've heard, old or new, in the comments. I'll pin the one that fits what road in my cab. The desert highway is no place for miracles, but I swear, what happened next felt biblical. Not the good kind either, the wrath of God kind, the kind that writes itself in blood across asphalt. He'd been murmuring for miles, words that didn't want to be words, every one of them dragged over his throat like claws on a coffin lid. My rig hummed steady at 70, the wheel warm under my palms, when the hitcher's breathing changed, no longer ragged, no longer human. It was rhythmic, deeper, wet in the lungs, like something learning how to use them for the first time. A sound followed, crack, small at first like knuckles, then louder, like splitting firewood. The cab filled with it, his hands pressed into, his thighs hard enough to dent denim, nails lengthening with each shudder of the bones beneath. His wrists twisted, joints snapping free of their design, elbows bulging outward like there was no blueprint left for the body to follow. "Hey!" I barked, useless as a fly yelling at a windshield. "You need help?" He lifted his head. The face that turned toward me wasn't finished yet. His jaw had stretched forward an inch too far, lips split at the corners. Teeth, not rows but spears, pushed down from the gums, gleaming with blood that wasn't mine yet. His pupils dilated into discs of molten gold, swallowing the human right out of him. The cab shrank. My truck wasn't a truck anymore. It was a coffin on wheels with a monster trying to hatch inside it. He snarled, and the glass quivered. Every panel of my rig trembled like it wanted to leap off the frame. I swerved, tires screaming on asphalt, and his body slammed against the dash with a wet thud. The air filled with metal and musk, hot copper stink, the musk of an animal that had lived in its own blood too long. Labs, he coughed once, and then he wasn't talking anymore, his chest balloon, shirt ripping seam by seam, ribs reshaping under skin that tore like cheap leather. Fur burst through, bristling, jet black with a sheen that caught the moonlight, spilling through my windshield. Then he lunged, a claw the size of a carving knife ripped across the dash, cutting air fresheners and leather in the same swipe. The radio shattered in a shower of sparks, screaming static like it was in pain. His teeth snapped an inch from my ear, spit and blood flying hot enough to sting. I fought the wheel like it was a bull trying to throw me. Headlights swerved into the void, the trailer fishtailing across both lanes, horn blaring, engine choking. I knew. One wrong jerk, and we'd roll. His claws slashed again, the windshield fractured in a spiderweb of cracks. Cold desert air knifed through, filling the cab with grit. I punched at him, my fist connecting with something that wasn't soft anymore. It was like hitting a wall of gristle. My knuckles screamed, blood blooming, and the beast only roared louder. The St. Christopher medallion swung wide on its chain. For a split second, it clipped his forearm, sizzle. Smoke curled from the burn. He howled, a sound so loud it felt like it scraped the marrow out of me. My eardrums popped with the pressure that gave me seconds, nothing more. I slammed the brakes, horn blaring, tires screaming in agony. His body flew forward into the windshield, shattering it in an eruption of glass and moonlight. He half spilled out of the cab, claws scrabbling against the hood, but he didn't fall. He dug in, and then he turned, half in, half out, jaws wide. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't some cursed drifter. This was bred, built, released, an asset. And I was his cage on wheels until he decided otherwise. If the snap of bone made you wince, hit like right now and let the algorithm know you survived the first strike. The rig was screaming, brakes howling, tires eating themselves alive, trailer bucking like a chained animal behind me. The whole machine was dying under my grip, and the beast in my cab wanted me to die first. He snapped forward, teeth so close, I felt the heat of his breath scorch my cheek. I yanked the wheel hard, and the truck veered off asphalt, grinding down into sand and scrub. The trailer jackknifed, twisted, and the whole cab lurched sideways. Gravity betrayed me, threw me across the seat. The werewolf, half in, half out of my windshield, smashed into the dash with a snarl that wasn't pain, but fury. Then the crash hit. The rig rolled once, steel groaning like a ship being torn in. Half glass raining down in a blizzard of knives. My skull rang against the window. My ribs cracked fire across my chest. When we slammed back onto wheels, the engine coughed, sparked, then died. Darkness swallowed the cab, broken only by moonlight pouring through a windshield that wasn't there anymore. Silence followed. Desert. Silence, terrifying, total, and waiting. I knew he was gone before I saw him. The windshield gaped empty, claw gouged, like a mouth that had spit its horror out into the night. I crawled out of the wreckage, coughing smoke and radiator steam. My knees sank into sand. The desert stretched around me, flat, endless, silvered by the moon. My truck hissed, cooling like a wounded animal. The smell of diesel mixed with blood, my blood. And then I heard it, not close, not far, a shuffle in the scrub, heavy, wrong, not the sound of paws yet, not all the way, something between man and wolf dragging. Itself deciding what it wanted to be before it hunted, I staggered upright. My flashlight had snapped in the crash, my only weapon, a tire iron half buried in the sand, useless against what was out there. But the human mind clings to symbols of survival. Even when survival's a joke, I limped away from the wreck, each step pulling me deeper into the desert's black heart. Sage snapped under my boots. Every few paces the sound came again, parallel, matching me, closing the arc. A predator circling. I stopped breathing, tried to trick my own chest. But silence betrays you faster than sound. The night heard me anyway, and the werewolf did too. The scrub shifted, my eyes caught motion. Low, fast, amber flash, then gone. Another flash, to the other side. He was playing with me, not striking, yet my thumb brushed against my chest, and I realized the medallion was still there, swinging, cool again after the fire it left in him earlier. The one thing that had hurt him wasn't steel or fists. It was whatever was bound up in this scrap of tin. That thought landed like lightning. Maybe belief wasn't required. Maybe contact was enough. I clenched it, held it out like a knife, hand shaking. The desert air seemed to recoil for a second, but then the laugh came. Not human, not wolf, somewhere in between, deep, rolling, cruel. A laugh that told me my little talisman wasn't a sword, just a stitch of thread between me and the teeth, waiting in the dark. Then the howl split the night. It rolled across the desert in a wave, shook the sage, rattled my lungs. Coyotes answered miles away, but they weren't howling back. They were screaming in panic, scattering. The desert belonged. To him now and me, I was just the rabbit I ran. The sand gave way underfoot, dragging me down, burning my lungs with grit. The scrub clawed my clothes, slowed me while behind me. He loped, not running yet, not hunting for the kill, just pacing, closing, savoring. Like he'd done this before, like there'd been others before me, swallowed by this same stretch of Nevada night. I saw lights then, not town lights, too clean, too white, flood lamps in the distance, high on poles. A fence shimmered under them, chain link, topped with coils of wire. My heart clutched hope and spat it out in the same beat, because if that fence was what I thought it was, safety wasn't waiting behind it. Just another kind of predator. But I ran for it anyway, because the beast behind me wasn't going to wait much longer to stop savoring and start tearing, if glowing. I stared at you through the dark tonight. Where would you run? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll pin the smartest escape. The desert gave me no cover, no rocks, no trees, no place to vanish. Just sand, wire, and the glowing predator that owned the night. My legs pumped anyway, lungs clawing for air, sweat freezing cold under the moon. Behind me, he broke his own. Silence. The gate shifted. The play was over. The hunt had begun. Every step thundered into the sand like a drumbeat. He wasn't pacing now. He was coming. Claws on grit. Claws catching air. A body built for slaughter uncoiling at full speed. My hand clenched the medallion, knuckles white. I didn't believe in saints, but I believed in burns, and maybe that was enough. Then, floodlight. A blaze snapped on ahead of me, so bright it erased the stars. I skidded to a stop, blinded. Figures rose out of the dark like shadows given uniforms. Men in black, rifles shouldered, boots pounding the sand in perfect sync. Behind them, SUVs crouched like beasts with engines idling, low their sides unmarked but humming with power. The werewolf howled, and the men moved like they'd been waiting for that note. Silver streaked the night, nets, chains, weapons not meant for wars but for nightmares. He hit the fence first. His body slammed the chain link like it was paper, tearing through coils that should have gutted him. The metal screamed, but so did he, not in pain. In defiance, bullets followed, sparking across his shoulders, each one hissing when it met flesh. Not lead, not copper. Something else silver, burning bright in the moonlight. He staggered, but he didn't fall. He threw one man into the dirt, snapped another's rifle like a twig, and the desert became chaos. Snarls, gunfire, floodlights dancing wild across the sand. And me. I froze. My brain couldn't keep up. I'd just watched my truck die under his claws, felt him nearly tear my face off, and now here he was, fighting not for prey but against keepers. That's when I understood. He hadn't escaped anything. He'd been released. Asset 6, one of the men shouted, voice clipped, panicked through his comm. Visual compromised, target resisting, requesting containment. Asset 6, like he wasn't a man, like he wasn't even a monster, like he was a number, a thing, a project. He tore free of the nets, foam dripping from his jaws, his body still warping, half human, half wolf, half something worse. His eyes found me through the storm, and in that one glance I felt it. We weren't enemies, I was just in the way, just another witness on a road littered with erased witnesses. The men tightened their circle, forcing him down. The silver chains glowed where they touched his skin. He thrashed, howled, and the sound rattled my teeth. They slammed a mask over his jaws, thick steel, welded shut around his snout, and even muffled, his growl vibrated through the earth. I stumbled backward, hands shaking, medallion burning, cold against my palm. The leader turned toward me. No insignia, no name, just a helmet and a rifle. He tilted his head like he was deciding whether I was human or just another variable. "Pick him up," he said. "Not about the werewolf, about me." 2 men broke off, boots hammering sand, hands reaching. I tried to shout, to explain, to say I wasn't part of this, but my voice cracked under the floodlights. My words drowned in the chains clinking over fur, in the snarls that no muzzle could contain. They dragged me closer, closer to the beast, his eyes locked onto mine. Not pleading, not warning, just knowing. Like he'd been through this loop 100 times, and I was just the next disposable driver stupid enough to break the rule. I caught his last words before the sedative dart hit, muffled through steel, but clear as glass. "Not done." Then. He went down, body collapsing under silver, floodlights swallowing him, and me, I realized there was no escape, because if he was Asset 6, how many more were still inside? Curses like this don't end. They echo. Subscribe now and join the archive before the next howl finds you. The desert wasn't silent anymore. It was alive with chaos. Boots hammering sand, chains clattering, engines snarling, radios vomiting clipped commands. Floodlights turned night into an arena, and in the center of it all, the beast buckled. Under silver, they thought he was finished. They thought sedatives and chains were enough, but they'd forgotten the moon. It rose higher while they fought, spilling red across the sand, and I swear it was watching. His chest heaved against the muzzle, ribs straining, veins bulging like black cords under fur. The darts quivered in his hide, pumping chemicals built to tranquilize elephants. But his blood boiled them out, burned them away. His body rejected their science. A soldier barked into his comm. Asset 6 sedated, preparing transport. And then came the sound, bone snapping again, louder, not like earlier, when he'd shifted, slow and ugly in my cab. This was violent, explosive, like his skeleton was detonating inside him. Every link of chain vibrated, glowed brighter with heat. Then, pop, one of them snapped. Another followed. The handlers froze, for all their training, all their drills. None of them had rehearsed what to do when an experiment outgrows the cage they built for it. He surged upward. Silver links flew like shrapnel, slicing men open. His muzzle split down the middle, steel tearing like paper, jaws opening wider than any jaw should. His roar silenced radios, rattled floodlights, and drove the desert animals a mile out in every direction. I staggered back, throat raw, but the hands on me didn't let go. They were dragging me toward an SUV, shouting that I was compromised. I screamed, "Let me go." But their grip only tightened. And then the werewolf's eyes locked on me again, not human, not kind, but fixed, as though out of all the meat scrambling across the sand, I was still the one he wanted. Not to eat, not to kill. Something else. Recognition. He leapt. The floodlights shattered when his bulk slammed through them, spraying glass across the sand. He hit a soldier, tore him away in one swipe, and then another, ripping the circle apart. Blood hissed in the lamps, smoke curling where it touched fur. Rifles barked silver again and again, but he was already moving. Too fast, too brutal. Bullets lit him up like a constellation, each one sparking pain, but none slowing him down. The men dragging me turned their rifles, panicked. That was their mistake. He was on them in an instant. One claw, 2 bodies. I fell into the sand, ears ringing, heart slamming like it wanted to climb out of my throat. His shadow blotted the moon, fur bristling, muzzle dripping with steel and blood. And still that look, like I wasn't prey, like I wasn't random, like I was part of the plan, Floodlights. Crashed, SUVs overturned, radios went dead. He tore through the desert war like a storm, unstoppable, unkillable. For every dart in him, another howl answered, and with each howl, it felt like more were coming. Like Area 51 hadn't just built one monster. They'd built a pack I ran. My body didn't care if it was pointless. Instinct screamed louder than reason. Sand clawed my boots, blood smeared my hands. The medallion swung heavy and cold at my chest. But as I stumbled into the shadows beyond the floodlight wreckage, his howl followed me, long, deep, promising not done, not yet, not ever. This isn't the last transformation. The next one is worse. Follow the howl to the story waiting on screen. The desert swallowed the noise as fast as it had birthed it. One moment the night was alive with screaming metal, gunfire and howls that could peel the soul out of you. The next, silence spread over the sand like a shroud. Smoke curled from overturned UVs. Floodlights lay shattered in the dirt, sparks dying with soft crackles. The air stank of blood, diesel and fur singed by silver. The men who weren't dead yet were gone anyway, hauled off screaming into the dark, their voices cut short, one by one, and me. I was still on my knees in the sand, clutching a medallion that didn't feel like faith anymore. It felt like a curse. The werewolf stood in the ruin he'd made. Chains dangled from him in glowing loops, muzzle split open, eyes burning like coals. His chest heaved, each breath a furnace blast. He could have finished me there, torn me apart, written my name into the sand with what was left, but he didn't. He turned his head, tilted it the way predators do when they're studying prey they don't plan to kill just yet. My heart jackhammered. Every instinct begged me to run, but his stare held me frozen. That look wasn't hunger, it wasn't mercy either. It was something worse, recognition, I realized then. I hadn't picked him up. Not really, I'd been chosen. He limped toward the wire fence, every step pulling moonlight across his shredded hide. The soldiers who tried to rise were struck down, without a glance, claws flashing, rifles tossed like sticks. He moved slow, deliberate, like he wasn't fleeing but leaving. Like the desert itself belonged to him, and he was only returning to his territory. At the fence line he paused, his head lifted toward the moon, muzzle dripping, amber eyes bright enough to sear themselves into me forever. And then, just once, so low I almost thought it was my imagination, he whispered through blood and broken steel, "Not done," and then he was gone, swallowed by the scrub and the silver light. I staggered toward the wreckage of my truck. The cab was twisted beyond use, headlights still sputtering weakly, the trailer on its side like a gutted beast. Nothing salvageable. My whole world sat smoking in the dirt. Behind me, engines turned, not his, not Beast's, SUVs, survivors. Floodlights snapped back on, weaker this time, sweeping over the sand. Men moved through the smoke, helmets low, rifles raised. They weren't looking for him anymore, they were looking for me. Driver compromised. One voice muttered through a comm, "Witness asset, package retrieval authorized." I understood then. I wasn't going home, not tonight, maybe not ever. I wasn't the survivor of a werewolf attack. I was just the last piece of evidence to clean up, and if Area 51 had 6 of them, maybe more, then I wasn't just unlucky, I was part of a secret that doesn't end, doesn't fade, doesn't stay buried. The desert keeps its silence because the desert has teeth, and once you've heard the howl yourself, you don't get to walk away because the rule isn't don't pick up strangers. The rule is don't become the witness they need to erase. And out here in Nevada, the pack is always growing. The pack grows stronger with every whisper. Share this tale if you dare, and join us before the curse finds you alone. And for those who hunger for more, step deeper into the shadows with our Ultimate Werewolf Horror playlist, linked in the description below. In the world of horror, the scariest things happen when you least expect them, and trust me, you don't want to be left in the dark. Welcome to the darkness.